It is Tuesday, April 7th. The markets in New York are open, and our big number this morning is 750 million. Call it the Jersey Shore effect. That's the amount media conglomerate Viacom, owner of MTV and Comedy Central, among other channels, has to write down or take as a loss due to the unpopularity of some of its past TV shows. Hi, everyone. I'm Carolyn Costello in New York. With more for us is Jack Moore of The Street. Jack, let's parse through some of the words here. Viacom says the loss in revenue is associated with certain original programming genres that have been impacted by changing media habits. What exactly does this mean?
So what they're saying is that they're taking this $750 million charge, and that's essentially devaluing. They're lowering the value of their programming, and they're not specifying which specific content, but you can kind of read through. And so when they had originally valued, set a value, accounted for the value of what they believed their stream of revenue would be for their programming, for Nickelodeon, MTV, VH1, all their different shows and their reruns that they run on those shows as well, they had overestimated it. And they're saying that they overestimated it because at the time when they had valued it, it was a different landscape. It was a different time. It was before before Netflix had really surged, before mobile consumption was a thing, before people were watching reruns on YouTube. And so there's a diminished value in reruns in a lot of the shows that they run on their networks. I mean, think of MTV, VH1, even Comedy Central. It's changed a lot, and certainly Nickelodeon. So they're basically saying that we're not worth as much as we thought we were.
Do we know why viewers are taking to YouTube and other channels more instead of watching reruns on TV?
Well, I think the value of watching a rerun at the time when it's on TV is almost completely diminished because you can go on Netflix and actually stream most of the reruns of most of the popular shows. I mean, for the Jersey Shore, for instance, you can go on Amazon Prime and watch it for free. And most people, I mean, the amount of viewers, that amount of the audience in Amazon Prime is pretty impeccable. It's greater than the audience of that's watching MTV, certainly. And I think that there are so many other outlets, and there's YouTube. There's also just on your phone, you can watch streaming content, and on your iPad, on your iPad mini. I mean, there's so many different avenues of consumption now that the TV really there isn't a demand for that. You don't need to just wait for a rerun and try to plan and watch it on TV. It's not necessary.
So did Viacom bring this on themselves by putting their shows everywhere for free? Like you said, Amazon Prime, Netflix, among others?
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I think, yes, they definitely are part of the issue because they did offer their shows. They gave their shows, not gave them, I mean, they allowed Netflix to purchase those rights. But at the same time, you have to understand that they have to replace revenues that they had recently received as almost an annuity from, that were previously received from, think of like DVD sales. Those are almost obsolete at this point, and that was a huge stream of revenue. So they have these chunks of hundreds of millions of dollars that they would receive a year in, let's say, DVD sales that they need to replace. And so how do they replace that? Well, Netflix offers them a very high margin opportunity. They'll say, hey, we'll pay hundreds of millions of dollars if you just give us your old content that they need to offload anyways. So, I mean, I think that they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they don't offload that content, then they're going to have hundreds of millions of dollars that's being left out of the pie. And they really can't just replace that. So it's a really tough situation that they're in, and you really can't say that they're making the wrong decision, but they're certainly playing a role in it.
And does this give digital streaming channels more value when compared to traditional cable and broadcast?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, so I think a really interesting stat is in the last year alone, the actual amount of time per day of a typical viewer has decreased on the TV 13 minutes. Now, at the same time, viewership, time spent on Netflix has increased 12 minutes. So there's almost an exact symmetry to that, of where that lost viewership is being replaced. So that value is so much stronger on the digital content. And there are a few areas where I think that that these providers and Viacom still has a competitive advantage, but it's few and far between at this point.
So will the rest of cable channels start feeling the pinch as well, or do you think it's more about the type of reality programming that we're seeing featured on MTV?
I think the big differentiator is that when you have live sports content, there's still more demand for that. Actually, the value in live sports content is greater than it's ever been. I mean, 3-4 times the value that it was 15 years ago, even twice the value that it was 10 years ago. And that's because you can't just watch, you're not going to miss an NFL game and then watch it on a Monday. You've already heard it on Twitter. You've already heard it through your friends. You've already heard what the score was. And so the demand for sports is still stronger than ever. And that actual live viewership. So actually, my portfolio I had purchased for the portfolio that I run at The Street, I had purchased 21st Century Fox because they control Fox Sports 1. They control all the regional sports outlets. And you think of like a Disney that has ESPN. I mean, there's still a lot of value in that. But those the rerun type of offerings where you have even like MTV, there's no value in that live content of watching a rerun live. So I think there is a bit of a bifurcation.
So is the answer then give all your reruns to online sources and constantly create new programming for television?
I think the only way they can try to get around this is that they almost have to, without actually colluding, they almost have to all say that they're going to take their content off of Netflix and force Netflix to negotiate on prices, because right now Netflix has a lot of pricing power because there's really no other option for offloading that content. So without kind of like sparking the antitrust regulators, without kind of, maybe making them a little bit concerned that there is collusion, they obviously can't outright collude, but they might have to just all signal to each other that they're going to be pulling their offloaded content, their reruns, and start negotiating with Netflix all at the same time. That's almost impossible to orchestrate.
Interesting stuff. Jack Moore from The Street, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And you, of course, can keep up with the latest headlines right here on abcnews.com. You've been watching The Big Number. I'm Carolyn Costello in New York.